The New Age, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is a set of beliefs intended to replace traditional Western culture with alternative approaches to religion, medicine, the environment, music, etc. And it's interesting, I've drawn this picture to try and describe it. You see, particularly in the West, the view is that there is a personal God, okay? And that was the predominant view for centuries. God is real. But about 150 years ago or so, we had a time called the Enlightenment, where people thought that they didn't need God, and so basically they abolished him, at least in their public life. But you see, because we are spiritual beings, doesn't actually help, because somewhere we're going to fill that spiritual void with something spiritual. And so it swung from one extreme to another in more recent times, that everything is God, which is a technical term called monism, which comes out of Eastern religions, that everything is God. And we can become maybe a part of God as part of their thinking. So the New Age, as it's been called, which was launched in 1975, they are hoping for a one world religion, for the good reason they think that religion is what causes strife amongst most peoples. And so you end up with fighting in Northern Ireland between so-called Catholics and Protestants. You end up with fights in the Balkans between Muslims and Orthodox Christians and Catholic Christians. And then you go to the Middle East and you see everybody's ganging up on Israel, so it's Muslims versus Jews. You could go to a place like Sri Lanka, where until recently there was a civil war where it was Hindus versus Buddhists. And so all around the globe we see strife caused by religion. Well, religion is a Latin word with a root called religare, which means to bind. Religion is a bondage, not a relationship with God that Jesus came to share with us. They would also like to see a one world government, so that the other main cause of strife in the world, of economic fighting over issues to do with resources, there is a major shortage of water in many parts of the world, and that will cause wars. It already has. And so they think if we had a one world government, we would solve this problem. Personal happiness is something that is to be sought. Well, there's nothing wrong with being happy. But very frequently it's intended as a self-serving, self-centered issue. They think that sin should be obsolete, which I find rather interesting because sin seems to abound more and more. They'd like to tap into forces or energy that is within us, at least that's the belief, except that it isn't. Evolution. Somebody described evolution as fairy tales for adults. That a couple of cells got friendly and developed a tail and legs and climbed out of an Australian billabong and put on a suit and went to work. I don't have enough faith for that belief, no matter how long they think it took. And reincarnation, this belief that we get several shots at life and gradually each time we get better and better, except that in the Hindu version of that, you could actually go backwards and come back as an insect or an animal. It's spiritual bookkeeping, the law of karma. It's covered elsewhere in this material. And that we need enlightenment, not salvation. But in actual fact, we need salvation because enlightenment doesn't seem to do the job. And the last point that I want to make here is the New Age hope that there are no absolutes. In fact, in this age of tolerance, the one thing not tolerated is truth, because Jesus Christ is the truth. So we have in the Middle East an origin of this. Happened in Babylon, and it's the story, it's recorded in Genesis chapter 11, the story of Nimrod, his wife Semiramis, and their supposed baby Tammuz. And this is a picture or a drawing of the model of it. And it's interesting because the spiritual basis of this came from Babylon, when that was overthrown later, moved into Egypt. then into Greece, then the Roman Empire, and then it spread through the European esoteric and occultic groups, particularly the Gnostics, the Druids, the people who read the Kabbalah, the Jewish book of the occult, and the Illuminati, and then the Knights Templar and the Rosicrucians. So let's look at that again. Because that then, a lot of those groups took over an organization we know as Freemasonry. And when it's mixed with Swedenborgism, named after Emanuel Swedenborg, and Theosophical Society and spiritualism, all of these coalesced into what we call the New Age. So it's not one group, it's a lot of groups. But the power is in the range of views that they share. And it was launched in 1975. So let's back up to Nimrod and Semiramis briefly, because their story is that that Nimrod was the sun god, and when he was killed, and Semiramis got herself pregnant not long after that, and had this baby Tammuz. And this story turns up in many cultures, and this is what gives me the origins of it. In Egypt, they were known as Isis and Osiris. In Greece, as Orion and Aurora means pregnant with light, and if you're carrying the child of the sun god, it would make sense. Also, they were known as Apollo and Diana, or Artemis, which means the mother of gods. You might be getting a bit of a picture here. In Canaan, they were known as Baal and Astarte, or also as Molech and Ashtaroth. Now, the variations are because of language differences. And Ashtaroth was the queen of heaven. In Rome, they were known as Jupiter and Fortuna. It's the same story with different names because of the languages. Here's Isis and Horus, a description from Egypt. And in India, they were known as Surya, the sun god, and Isi or Devaki. And it's interesting, I've met people who were dedicated to these in these cultures who have come to the West since. The Scandinavians knew Semiramis as Disa. The Germans called her the Virgin Hertha. The Druids knew as Virgo Patatura, and in China as Xingmu or Ma Supu. So we see this as a global message or storyline that gets around. Here's another one from India showing the same story. You see, fundamentally, the New Age doesn't want to reject the Christian church. It seeks to absorb it and to change it from within, and it's actually been very successful. But we need to get back to the God of the Bible, who reveals himself as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So is the true God found in all religions? The holy books of all religions contradict each other, so it's unlikely. Buddhism, Taoism, Theosophy, and New Age Spiritism claim everything is God, including us. Hindus and Mormons have three main gods, and we can become gods too. Muslims, Baha'i, and Unitarians have one distant, singular God. He's not close. Judaism and Jehovah's Witnesses both believe God is singular, but he's not quite so distant. But the God I know, the God revealed through the Bible, is infinite, personal, loving, triune, and he wants a relationship with you. And some people think that every God is the source of all the religions, or all of the gods are the same, just manifest in different ways. It's simply not true. And if you think that you can become a God, or that you've met one that has skin on so far, I would want to point you out to the other part of this little cartoon. There is a God called I Am, Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You need to meet him and let him work wonders and miracles in your life.